Welcome to the Rex Sanders Show. Glad to have you with us. If you are a first-time listener, welcome to the conversation. We ask a couple things for you. Give us comments, give us feedback. Second thing, always subscribe so you can hear the next and latest and greatest episodes. And then the last thing that we recommend that you do is we're not bashful. I will beg. In fact, I got a collar on today, so I'll call myself a well-dressed beggar. We'll beg for those stars. So if you think we're doing a good job, give us 5 stars. It helps us in the ratings reviews. We would like to welcome our listeners who are returning. A lot of choices for podcasts out there. There's over 3.6 million podcasts according to the podcast index, but that's a lot of choices to choose from. So we like to identify our listeners that are dialing in, and I would like to welcome our listeners who are listening in Amarillo, Texas today. So thank you for those who are dialing in Amarillo. The program is currently heard in 32 countries, a little over 500 cities, and across 6 continents. So we've got a large audience, a lot of great followers, and it's all because of you that the show is a success. If I could talk today, the show's a success. Now, got another great story for you today. The show is all about biographies, people doing amazing things. So it's important for us to point out that, success doesn't fall out of the sky. So we have a lot of really high-powered individuals doing amazing things, and that's what we talk about here, because I like to show to people, hey, there's a journey to get to those places where we are. So excited about our guest here today. You want to talk about a high-powered individual, talk about a go-getter. He's not that old, and he's done a lot of things, so it's pretty interesting. He's a serial entrepreneur, has been involved in all kinds of things. Heck, we got on a little pre-interview the other day, and we knew some people without even knowing each other for 30 seconds. He is a active podcaster and host. He is the host and founder of the B2B Mentors podcast and doing that. He's a marketing writer. He actually is the president of a company called Active Blogs, and just, one of these high-powered individuals. So I'd like to welcome to the show today. And again, we're only hitting the cusp of all the things he's doing, but welcome to the show. Coming in from Arizona today, Connor Dube. Connor, how are you?
What's going on, folks? Actually, my Colorado people, my Texans, my global people, and my Colorado people. My last name is actually Dube, which is ironic growing up in the state of Colorado.
That's right.
Last name Dube kind of is like, dude, am I in the wrong business?
Sorry, I just stumbled through that this morning, a little bit of craziness. So good to have you on the show. Now, Connor, as you know, the show's about telling people stories. We're going to talk about the things you're focusing on today and things you're monetizing and the things that you deliver to the world today. But we want to know a little bit how you got there. So we're going to go back in time and history, learn a little bit about you, your influences, and those types of things, because that's what we really do here. So I'm going to throw out a list of things. You don't have to worry about writing them down because I'll throw those questions out, but we're going to go through these. We want to know where you were born, okay? And then also, too, where were you raised? Because that's really different sometimes. I had a guest on the show, Ellie Soja, who basically moved 63 times before the age of 15.
Crazy.
So in and out of refugee camps and all kinds of stuff. So big influences on her life. We'd like to know a little bit about your family. So if you have siblings, and then if you do have siblings, if any of them survive your harassment, we'd like to know about your parents, because parental influence is huge on who we are today, regardless of your age. So in over hundreds of interviews that I've done, I have come up with sort of 3 main buckets. Now, it's not an exact science here. There's nothing scientific about this. But the first bucket I'd call parental influence is the super supportive parents. Fully engaged, pushing you along, encouraging you, doing everything, involved in everything you were at, okay? The second bucket's kind of the middle buckets, or the non-participatory parents. Love their kids, but they were so busy eking out a living that they just weren't fully engaged and had the time and resources to do that. Then the last bucket's the struggle bucket, I call it, and it's an unfortunate one, but it motivates people. And that's the bucket of struggle, where there might be things like abuse or excessive poverty, just all kinds of disruption, unstable, those types of things that basically motivates the kids to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be anything like that. Okay. Then we also want to know what you did as a kid growing up, the things you did outside of school. So sports or theater, dance, singing, shoplifting. In fact, don't laugh at that. I actually had a guest on the show, Larry Connor, that was a shoplifter not a shoplifter. He migrated from being a shoplifter to a car thief by the time he was 15.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So a car thief at 15. Then we want to hopscotch through a little bit of your education. But the big thing I'm looking for after that is just pivot points. Now, you're not an old guy. And you haven't even reached your 30th birthday. So when we run through all these things, there are going to be a lot of people going, wow, what's this guy made of? What's he eat for breakfast? That kind of thing. So let's start back in the beginning, if you could, Connor. And again, I'll fire these questions off at you. Where were you born?
Yeah. And although I am probably the youngest most to interview on podcasts, shows like yours, and also thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like I've lived many lives so far. I've always been told, even when I was younger, that I was an old soul, whatever that actually means. I was always hanging out with older people, still do. Most of my friends, mentors are twice my age, 3 times my age.
Right.
So I love that. But yeah, man, born and raised in Fort Collins, Colorado. Shout out to my CSU people.
That's
right. Didn't go to CSU, but grew up in I don't know. Back then you could maybe consider it maybe a small town, kind of a mid-town, but very bland town. And I mean, I've grew up there and I've lived in Colorado, like solidly lived in Colorado most of my life. But I've actually traveled quite a bit, and I've made a huge emphasis in traveling, experiencing new cultures, been to many places all over the world. Colorado's a unique place, but Fort Collins in particular is kind of funny because they used to refer to it as like Vanilla Valley.
It is.
It's very vanilla.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the people there are also, like it's mostly a white community.
Yeah.
And so I knew I didn't want to, I was always, even from a young age, like, oh, this place is too small for me. I always see myself doing these big things. Yeah. I've always seen myself as a monster success, even from a very young age, but I've had a lot of steps and roadblocks and hurdles even to get to where I am at 27. So,
well, it's an interesting insight that you point out about Fort Collins. I grew up here in Colorado. I'm from Golden. Golden has its own little personality and bubble. Home of Coors and stuff, and a little bit of a college town, Colorado School of Mines. But Fort Collins is just kind of a prairie farm town that has a college in it, and it's like you said, very white, very, very, very homogeneous that way. Bland. It's not Boulder where you have all kinds of people doing all kinds of crazy things. Fort Collins is just kind of the everyday college town, but with not a whole lot. It's not an Austin, or it's not these places that have this big, different kind of karma. So you're right.
Last several years though, it is boomed, exploded in Fort Collins. A lot of people, Denver got really expensive over the last few years.
Yep.
And since then, a lot of people have migrated up north, a bit more between there and Wellington. So I kind of split my time. My mom and dad were separated. Since I was 1 year old. Never got married. And my dad lives in Wellington, Colorado. So kind of split my time in real Farmville up there, chickens, cows, horses. He, when he was younger, wanted to be a cowboy, ended up in real estate. And
it's a good community though. I mean, it is affordable. It's, much more affordable than Denver these days, but it's true. Fort Collins doesn't really have just some sort of signature. In fact, what's interesting about it in my mind is the restaurants are mostly all chain restaurants. It's not a town with a huge diversity of restaurants of just small, eclectic, hole-in-the-wall type places. That's, a good portion of Fort Collins is pretty mainstream.
The thing it's got going for it, though, is like, I don't drink beer, but breweries.
Lots
I mean,
of
it's
breweries.
I think Fort Collins has maybe not more than Denver, but pretty damn close.
Yeah.
And New Belgium, if you drink New Belgium beer, wherever you are in the world, New Belgium is based in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah. So that's a great town. All right. So growing up now, do you have siblings?
I have 7 siblings.
7 siblings. Oh my goodness. Now, where do you fall in the pecking order?
I'm the second oldest, and the only purebred, I'm using air quotes, anyone watching video, purebred of the family, because all my siblings are either half or step siblings. So I'm the second oldest to my stepsister. Pretty much raised a lot of my siblings growing up. The youngest is 13 years old, which is crazy. Surprised my parents at the age of 40. So my mom and stepdad.
Okay, fantastic. Now, how many girls? How many boys?
That's 4 girls and 3 boys.
Wow, that is quite the crew.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I have 5 kids. I understand what it's like to have a big family, but 7's a big crew. Now, tell me a little bit about your parental influence. Of those 3 buckets, would there be a particular bucket that you might lean more towards, or tell me just a little bit about that family dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, my parents were both in real estate back in the early days. My mom still works in the RE/MAX office in Fort Collins, Colorado. Okay. And my dad, if anybody knows RE/MAX, my dad, who came from New York, immigrated from New York, he was early in franchising RE/MAX offices. So he was franchising RE/MAX offices kind of all over the country. Went to a real estate conference, met my mom. Here I am, surprised. What happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Sure. But my parents are both freaking incredible supporters of me. Okay. Like anything I want to do. I actually started my first business at the age of 7 because my mom, especially my dad and I didn't really get along in our life or weren't really close until my later teenage years. Mm-hmm. But my mom, like the biggest supporter out there and always encouraging literally anything that I want to do. So that really ingrained with me throughout my life, even to this day. And especially at a young age, made a big impression. They always brought me into she always brought me to her real estate, wine mixers and party. Those real estate people party all the time. So sure. I was always around social groups. And I think that's also had a huge influence in just kind of my personality type. Although we'll talk about this, I'm sure I'm very introverted and actually in very unique ways, but externally people see me as very extroverted.
Yeah. When you just said you were an introvert, I was grinning because I wasn't buying that one from you. All right. So I know you're an entrepreneur. You started a business at 7, but what else did you do as a kid growing up? Sports or hobbies? What were you involved in?
I've played probably every sport under the sun. My stepdad is huge into sports. So that was, a big push for me and my siblings on my mom's side to always be involved in sports. So started baseball at a young age. I've done wrestling for a year. I did football for 8 years, which anyone who sees me, I'm a short 5'8", half Jewish dude with I weighed 165 pounds maybe in my glory days in high school, but there I was playing linebacker and defensive line and I loved the competition and I loved the action of it and it was a lot of fun. It was great to have that little community. So done a lot of sports. I've also been very involved in my community when I was younger. Mm-hmm. In high school, I was always looking for ways to get extra involved. So I would participate in fundraisers, take them on. We did Cans Around the Oval and March of Dimes and the Hair Raiser. And that was really rewarding for me. It just kind of naturally fit in because I'm like, I love helping people. Sure. And the traditional way people are doing school and kind of involved in school was just like really boring to me. So I always needed extracurriculars. I was president of our business club in high school, DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America, if I remember that correctly.
You did.
And FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America.
Okay, so I just have to ask, being a Colorado guy myself, and my boys all played college football and stuff, or high school football and things here in Colorado. What high school were you at, Pooter, or were you at which one?
Rocky Mountain High School.
Rocky Mountain. Okay, fantastic. Yep. Good enough. Okay.
One of the 4 OG high schools, I think, up there.
Yeah. It's a great community. I still love it up that way. So when you got done with high school, were you a good student or were you bored to tears, or tell me a little bit about that?
Oh my God, I was a terrible student. I mean, I did just enough to get by. Yeah. But C average I did, like I said, I did just enough to get by and barely skim by to get through. Same with college. I did end up going to college, which for me probably wasn't the best decision. I did graduate, but school, I'm like the worst. I'm the kid who sits there and just taps his pen, talks to everybody, disruptive, cracking jokes. And my teachers, although I got along with my teachers, and I just, school is definitely not for me. In fact, when I was in high school, I was always trying to find ways to like get out of high school earlier. By the time my junior year rolled around, I'm like, dude, I'm done with this. I want to get on with the real world. I want to go out to the business world. I had already kind of started businesses in high school, and I went to my counselors, principals, teachers, and tried to find any avenue possible for extra credits to graduate early. All of them told me there's nothing that I could do additional to what I was doing. So I created different mediums. Like I went and got involved in the needs department for special needs students. And I went and I did all these nonprofit activities, and I went and I did these extra like business activities and tied them into the school. And then I took those activities and I went back to my teachers, principal, and I sold them on giving me extra credits so that I could graduate early. So like by time my high school year rolled around, I was like not in school at all.
Oh, that's funny. So what did you study in college? I know you weren't like heavy into the academic side, but what did you get your degree in?
Marketing, man.
Marketing. Okay.
That's a degree in common sense.
That's right. No kidding. Yeah, it's interesting today. I think, looking back at your age, you're close to 6, 7, 8 years out of school. I'm well out of that. It's really different now. I don't think college is as much needed as people think it used to be. If you want to study any topic, you can go out to YouTube and Google, and you could teach yourself fine art or all these kinds of things. Yeah. So today, and I've got 5 kids. My youngest is 18. They're all doing different things, but the need for college just isn't there as much because they're doing entrepreneur things. They're doing things that they don't need to spend, 2 years taking more general ed classes just to get credits, just to graduate kind of thing. And then I've got a daughter in medical school. And then I've got a daughter that has a master's in human behavioral sciences. So, it's all over the place. But I think today, in today's world, I've met so many very successful people that are either went into trades immediately or just were entrepreneurs and just started to run. So when you got finished with school, what was your first hop?
Yeah. And to emphasize on that too, unless you're in something specialized like medicine or engineering or science, there are so many courses, professionals, mentors that you can attach yourself into. This is something I did at a young age in order to, pursue the life. Like we hire regularly, and I interview billionaires, multimillionaires, super successful entrepreneurs, and almost 100% of them say, I would much rather hire someone on energy and experience versus the degree that I don't give a shit about. Right.
That's right.
So you're, go ahead. Yeah.
In the world today, I think also too, they ought to stop giving loans out for some of these ridiculous, degrees. I've got a niece who has I won't tell you the ridiculous. I'm sorry, folk dance is her degree. So,
wow. And
she can't get a job. She can't get it. She doesn't even have a teacher certificate.
I know engineers and many people who even have higher end degrees that still can't get a job. So having a degree learning sales and learning marketing, no matter what you want to do, whether you want to be a scientist or engineer or artist or whatever, everybody should learn sales and marketing, and school can't teach it. You can only learn it through practitionership. Yep. And that's the most important education that anybody can really get.
Okay. So we're on the same page there. I started my first company real early, and then people have always said you're the consummate salesperson, but life is sales. How do you get a spouse or a girlfriend or a wife or a husband without being in sales, right? You've got to convince people to and talk things. So
Yeah.
So anyway, when you
Sales
got
is
done,
a dirty word for a lot of people, but it's
yeah,
just a misunderstanding of what it actually is, what the actual term is. It's more influence and guiding and helpfulness than, people have experience with pushy salespeople, and that's how they imagine sales to be. So
yeah. So what was your first gig right out of college then? You finished up with your your marketing degree. What was your first gig?
So during college, I had a unique experience there because I started doing door-to-door sales to pay my way through school.
Uh-huh.
And through that experience, I did door-to-door sales for 2.5 years, which most people don't last 2.5 months doing door-to-door sales. Crazy experience. I've had the cops chase me out of neighborhoods. I've had homeowners push and shove me. I've had my pants eaten by dogs. I've ran across a family of nudists, which live in downtown Denver, by the way. From there, I was promoted because I was good at it. I took over the event marketing team with this company. I managed 25, 30 salespeople. This was towards the latter stages of my college career,
Uh-huh.
and grew that from $4 to $11.8 million in a year and a half. And from that period, I was like, you know what? I can't work for anybody. This just, I'm going to go and probably start another company. What I ended up doing was actually partnering up with my dad in his business because he was in this very unique sector that was going through a lot of pivots, innovations, changes. And I'm like, dude, we can blow this thing up if we attack it the right way. So
Right.
stepped out of college, partnered up with my dad. And that was my, job, air quotes, job out of college that I'm still currently involved with.
Fantastic. So how long gosh, you'd think I would never done this before after a couple hundred episodes. When did you start your podcast?
I started podcasting, what was it, 4.5 years ago.
Okay.
I started my first podcast. Part of this whole evolution was me coming to the realization of although my dad had a business, it wasn't a crazy, outlandishly successful. It was a very small company, very, very
Right.
small business. And my mom, had been kind of an employee for her whole life as well. So I'm like, what do I need to be successful, to be outrageously successful, not only with my health, with my money, with my emotional state, is mentors and connections.
Right.
Is where you get places. So 4.5 years ago, I founded the Mile High Mentors podcast, where we had a studio. We were actually down, if you know where Denver Open Media is, we actually started out of Denver Open Media, eventually went into House of Pod, and we're hosting there. And we did that for a number of years until, COVID hit. I moved out of Denver and changed the podcast to B2B Mentors.
Okay. So on the B2B Mentors, what is your, what do you offer to your listeners? What is the basis of your show?
So B2B is unique because it's business to business, which falls in the category of my passions, are businesses that sell to other businesses. It's a different world from selling
B2C.
consumer products,
Yep.
right? I've got a cell phone. I'm going to sell you a cell phone versus I have 500 units of cell phones. I'm going to sell it to your organization in a monster transaction that takes 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Right.
So B2B Mentors is geared towards business development leaders, top CMOs, top marketers in that arena to bring those insights to our listeners.
Okay. How often do you drop your episodes?
We drop a new episode every Monday.
Okay.
And we're going to actually uptick that to probably a daily show that's going to do some individual stuff. And then we'll have a weekly podcast, but we record more frequently than that, typically 2 or 3 times a week. We actually do it live on LinkedIn.
Nice.
So yeah. So the beginning stages when you're trying to announce people and you're all caught up in your words, your brain's misfiring. It's tough, man. I feel for you. I know how that goes.
It's a little bit crazy. I don't know why I'm a little stuttering this morning. I've been doing this forever, as far as I had a radio career before doing this. But anyway,
The
so
wires just don't fire all the time. Even for,
yeah,
anybody.
even for the old dogs, it doesn't. And and I'm not to the point where I'm losing my cognitive capabilities. But some days it's like, what? Where's my tongue?
I'm right
All
there
right.
with you.
So fantastic. So after you got started with your first company there, how long now? You're still involved with that, right? And it's been what, 4 or 5 years?
Mile High Mentors.
No, not Mile High Mentors. You're the first company that you started with your went to work with your father.
Yes, Active Blogs has
Active
been.
Blogs.
I even started in that partially while I was in college.
college?
So
Okay.
I've been involved in that business for 7 years now.
Okay, fantastic. Now tell us what Active Blogs does.
We create blogs, newsletters, and LinkedIn content for B2B industries, technical companies, industries that are very obscure. We have really, really freaking cool clients that are in just like these industries that you were like, you wouldn't even imagine exist, from wastewater to biotech to SaaS to, telecom and IT and medical. I mean, it's really, really fun and interesting to see like, whoa, there's a whole industry around this sector that most people don't even know about.
Yeah, they have no idea. And
so our team, we actually create, produce, develop all of our clients content for them, and then feed it out to all their key channels. And they never have to try to hire, more staff, writers, designers, videographers. We just manage it all for them. Make it easy.
Is there a sweet spot size of company that you work with then?
Typical company size, we've done everything from companies as large as CenturyLink, who we've done their newsletter. They have lots and lots of marketers, but still couldn't get their newsletter done.
Isn't that
to
crazy?
Small, medium-sized businesses is pretty much our average.
So fantastic. No, I just wanted to understand, so people, if they're following along, throw out a website that's probably best for people to catch up with you at.
Yeah, anybody can check out activeblogs.com.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So in all your journeys and getting these things started and running and doing the stuff that you're working on, you do some speaking and those types of things too. What's your favorite one of these entities that you're working on?
Man, in the background, I'm working on a nonprofit for suicide prevention in the entrepreneur and intrapreneur community.
Okay.
This is something I faced in my teenage years, where again, a lot of people see me as this very outgoing person. And I attempted suicide at the age of 18, actually. Always faced immense depression, anxiety throughout a good chunk of my life.
Yeah.
Did a lot to resolve that to where I'm at today. Wouldn't be where I'm at today if I wouldn't have resolved it. I wouldn't be here today.
That's true.
So I'm super passionate about helping people in that area. And podcasting is just a freaking blast. One of my favorite things to do. So I could do that for absolute $0 and would still do it all day, every day.
Sure.
Yeah. And there's just always, as an entrepreneur yourself, you get all kinds of interesting stuff thrown at you from being in mastermind groups, from networking, seeing what other business owners are doing. So just always looking at how to improve, innovate, and iterate.
Yeah, that's no question. And when you're out there as an entrepreneur, a lot of things come your way, and you have to always sort of do that evaluation, maybe put on the brakes. Is just because you can doesn't mean you should. So
that's where most people get into trouble.
It's getting into trouble. They get sidetracked on those types of things.
I just put a video out yesterday on LinkedIn that talked about, I was doing research for an article that I wrote called "What Top CMOs Do That You Should Too." And I was researching software stacks. Yeah. There's 7,000 plus software just for marketing and sales. And as an entrepreneur, this stuff gets so overwhelming. Yeah. And so I've found the most successful are doing what you and I just acknowledged, is trying to find things to eliminate more than add, and trying to get things more focused than what shiny objects are out there, being observant, but being cautious of how you're spending your time and, innovating your business or changing your business.
Well, let's go back. I want to touch on something you mentioned here. think a little over 20% of the adult population has and deals with either depression and or more severe mental health issues.
Yep.
What age did that come into your life?
That started surprisingly young for me, part of being the old soul, right?
Yeah.
I was at 14 and 15 even contemplating, like, why am I not where I know I should be in my
Sure.
life?
Mm-hmm.
And oh man, I got some thunder rolling out here if you guys can hear that, which is funny being in Arizona. And ADD, that's part of it too, so never mind my sidelines. But it started early. It got progressively worse. I, throughout college, entered into a bad relationship my freshman year that lasted 4 years, in this really toxic relationship. That wasn't good. Come to find out too, I had basically autoimmune disease throughout a part of my life, which really was one of the biggest factors in my mental health. Okay. So I went over the years, even up to now, this big long journey of figuring out, okay, well, a lot of mental health, like they try to put me on so many medicines and depressants and drugs and everything. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to rough it out and I'm going to figure out how to solve this at the root. Come to find out, your gut actually is pretty much your second brain. The vast majority of what you put in your gut is coming out through your brain as well. So if you're having high inflammatory foods, glutens, dairy, stuff that's been changed, iterated on from modern farming practices to high sugar, all of that extremely impacts your mood and causes a lot of anxiety, depression. Same with exercise, same with all these other things. So,
well, are you still actively treating it? Are you doing any meds or anything like that today? Because I guess the point I'm trying
zero
to
medicines.
Zero medicine. The point I'm trying to help people understand is, you are an extrovert, high energy, very charismatic, guy, and so they think all this just came easy to you, but it didn't. There was some severe struggles there. And in fact, very, very severe struggles when you get to the point where you're in the mindset to take your own life.
Yeah.
And so was there anybody that played a big influence during that period of time in your life that sort of grabbed you by the hand and said, hey, come on along? Or did you fight through all this on your own?
Well, that's what I think is where people make the biggest and struggle the most, is because it is very lonely. Like when you're in that mindset of feeling suicidal, and like, I know the feeling, you're in quicksand, you don't even want to get out of bed. And I still can have days like that. Like you guys are hearing me now. But if you don't know me and you're not with me every day, there's days where I just binge Netflix all day long, and I have those low days. But the difference in the nuances, when I'm on my highs, I ride the crap out of my highs. When I'm in the lows, I acknowledge it. I work through it. I'm patient and I stay focused. And so back to your question, the most important thing that you can do that I finally started doing is communicating it. I started communicating with my dad, with my mom, with my family, with friends. Hey, I'm struggling with this. And it was apparent when I ended up in the hospital when I attempted suicide. So that was kind of apparent. But, years even after that, these struggles persisted. And through asking for help and doing lots of research, spending hours a day trying to figure out what are the natural ways that I can solve this at the root versus put a Band-Aid over it through traditional modern medicine, which I'm not a huge fan of. Great for saving lives in risky situations, but when you're looking to fix your health at the root cause, modern medicine isn't really set up for that. So I went on this journey, and that's what I would recommend or people to entertain, because even to this day, if I don't go to the gym for a couple days out of the week, that little voice in your head starts to creep back in. And I've been at this for years of overcoming this. So,
yeah, I was hoping that people could see that, it's not Superman. You had a great upbringing with very supportive parents, but this didn't fall in your lap, and you've dealt with these issues. So what are you working on next? What's your next big project besides the nonprofit? I know you're working on that one.
I'm working on the nonprofit. I genuinely love, my favorite thing in the world is to coach and mentor people as well, because I've been blessed so much with mentorship from others who have helped me out. So, I'll probably in the coming months put together a official mastermind group with 5 or 6 individuals who want to really elevate their life, accomplish some of the things I have, get introductions into my network. I was just on the phone with Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank last week as part of our group. And, that didn't just happen. It happened from me taking a lot of action, but investing into other people and investing into relationships. So I think a lot of people just kind of sit and wait around. I just take a lot of action when I'm feeling it. When I'm down, then I just let myself ride it out. And then I take action when I'm up again.
Yeah, I understand that 100%.
Always highs and lows.
Yeah, those who know me at a personal level know that I have some stuff like you. I'm bipolar 2, hypomania, ADD. Now they call it bipolar undefined now. I mean, that's what it is. So I understand when you are taking advantage of those high, fast motor run days, and you're doing all these things, and people look at you like you're crazy because you got 100 things accomplished. And then the days, like you said, I'm just out for a drive, or I'm watching Netflix all day, or, I'm playing with a dog, because you have those days. But
you have to. And here's the thing is, maybe you've been diagnosed that, but also it's called being an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. That's like part of being in the business, in the modern business world. So whether you define or you're actually diagnosed through modern medicine, bipolar, or ADD, I've been called it all, man. Like if you look at the flattest of surfaces, for those of you who might be watching, I have a poster board behind me.
Right.
To the naked eye, it's flat, right? It's a flat, totally square image. If I take an electron microscope and I blow it up on the edges where it's flat, it's crevasses, caves, indents, and that applies to everything in life, every human being. Everything has a cycle and everything has ebbs and flows.
Sure.
So I think people get too hard on themselves when they're in the down flows, and when they're in the up flows, they're not taking enough advantage of it in the ways that some of us who are effective and impactful entrepreneurs or professionals do take action on it.
Fantastic. So, coming down to the last couple of questions here, one I was asking, I think I know what you're going to say, but looking back from where you are today, you said you're 28, right, in our pre-interview. So, looking back over your period, Mr. Entrepreneur, the things you've done, is there anything you'd do different?
It's an interesting question, because the person I am makes me want to say, nope, I do it all the same because it made me who I am today.
Sure.
And that's kind of the direction I guess I would lean towards, because I mean, just everything that happened was meant to be, because it made me where I'm at today. Like, I'm so grateful for the hardships, for the challenges, for when my parents were like so broke they couldn't pay for me to go on the field trip for school. Even though they appeared to be living the nice middle-class life, just barely over broke most of the time. And I'm super, super grateful for all of that, because it really has made me who I am. So I probably wouldn't change anything. If I had to start again from zero, knowing what I know today, then I would probably be 5x ahead of where I'm at right now.
Well, you never fail until you quit. And that's my philosophy.
True.
Coming out of tech, we always had a saying of, or still do, fail fast. So if you're going to fail at something, get it over. So stand right back up and go on to the next one. And you don't, if you repeat the same thing over and over, that's the only time you don't learn. Okay. If you can, you take your little licks and your wounds and you learn from it, then you've learned and you've progressed and you've grown. But if
Yep.
you keep doing the same thing over and over, well, then you're not making any progress. And I can see that in you, that you are the type of person that rolls with the punches, gets back up, and takes action. So I think that's applaudable. So I got one last question for you that I ask all of my interviewees. It's been great to have you on the show today. You know, in the Western culture, we have this concept called a bucket list. Okay. Now, I have actually interviewed the bucket list guy. His name is Trav Bell.
Wait, there's an actual bucket list guy?
The bucket list guy.
Come on.
Thebucketlistguy.com. His name is Trav Bell. Episode number 60 on my show. Okay?
Come on. I got to find this.
Yeah, he's amazing. And he talks about a purposeful life. And this guy has done amazing things. He's just great. Just an awesome guy it's a fun interview to listen to because he's just a dynamic individual, you know, just has a different perspective. Well, anyway, everybody's got these bucket lists, you know, things we want to do before our time is done. But then there's an opposite of everything in the universe. Now, that opposite is the things we don't want to do or don't want to do again or have no interest in. Now, that list rhymes with bucket and starts with an F, but this is a family show, so I'm not going to say that. It's the F-it list, okay? So you've been very transparent in telling your story and being vulnerable about, you know, your attempted suicide and some of the struggles you've been through. I'd like to know what might be on your F-it list. Now, I'll give you a couple examples, okay? I did this one right here in Colorado, and I even told this story on an episode. I will never, ever again do a Lakota Sioux sweat lodge, okay? The concept of excessive heat, excessive humidity, drumming and chanting, and a slice of nudity. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to have a collection of pet snakes. No interest in that. I'm certainly not going to be eating any more caviar or sardines. Those just things that don't on my
love caviar.
Well, okay. Well, you can love your caviar or monkey brains. I tried some of those down in South America. So what might be an item or two that's on Connor's F-it list?
Man, things that, I don't know. It's a funny thing is I'm always up for something challenging. Like I was terrified. I'm terrified of heights. Okay. I hate being too high up. And I went skydiving for my birthday last year.
Oh, fun.
Or 2 years ago. So man, I'm trying to think of something. So you're saying something I've done before?
No, it wouldn't do again. Either you've done something, you wouldn't do it again, or you just have no interest in it. Okay, just hey, I just have no interest in doing X, Y, Z. Like I used to travel a lot internationally for business and software, and I will never ever go back to Mexico City again because the last time I was down there on a sales call with a software company, we had to hire armed guards to get to the business we were headed to.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was so dangerous down there at that one time. I have no interest in going back to that. Okay. Not that we had any problems, but you know what? I don't need to put myself in risk. Okay. So now I know you're an adventure guy. I know you're a guy that's probably going to say, I'll try a lot of things once, but there's got to be an item or two that you're just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy.
Man, I don't know. Cause there's nothing that's been faced that I've been like, I'll probably never climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I just don't have the patience for extreme climbing. Like there's those, the crazy Coloradoans who their mission is to hike every 14er. I guess I'm okay not living that life. Now, if someone came to me and was like, hey dude, let's go do it, I'd be like, all right, fine, let's roll.
Right.
Cause I like the challenge. Yeah. So other than that, I don't know if there's anything that I've experienced that I would not do again that comes immediately to mind. Breaking bones sucks.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't recommend doing that again.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you've got a sense of adventure and you've got a lot of years ahead of you to do some amazing things. So I'm thankful that you came on today and told us your story. Again, throw out your website so people can find you and possibly even where you are on LinkedIn or where else you want to be connected on.
Yeah, if you can even just Google Connor Dube, CONNORDUBE, and I'm on every social platform. Sure. So wherever you like to spend time, I'm putting content out, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or, definitely check out B2B Mentors podcast. We have some really interesting guests there that are in these kind of under promoted information, I would say, because they're so busy working their careers that they're not
Right.
sharing these details publicly most of the time. So we're able to get some great stuff there. And if you want to check out activeblogs.com, that has pretty much all of our links in there.
Fantastic. Well, you've got a fan in me. I'm excited to follow you along. We'll get you back on in a year or so and just do a health check, see where you're at.
Vice versa, brother. I appreciate that much.
It's
I'm
been good
grateful
to
for
have
you for having me here.
Fantastic. So, folks, we'll call this an episode. Until next time, don't forget to stop by Connor's sites, his social media, and his website there. Also, too, we do have his profile on our show website. And so you can go there and find his profiles and links to all the things he's up to and what he's doing. And we're thankful to have him on and show that he's just another example that success doesn't fall out of the sky. You know, it takes some time and some effort. So until next time, we'll say the three things that we see every time. Be safe, be bold, and make it a great day.
See you guys.